Hi, this is Michael Floreale from When in Rome, and you are listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all-ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studio is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on X at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Michael Floreale of When in Rome and When in Rome 2.
Yeah, promoting When in Rome 2's upcoming shows next weekend or next week in California.
And then sounds like they might have some tour plans coming up next year.
Entertaining interview. Let's get to it.
All right, good night.
Good night. Michael, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce to you my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Michael, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, thank you for inviting me on the show. Looking forward to chatting with both of you.
Well, we're excited to have you. Thank you for all the correspondence. So let's get right into this. Well, in a week, When in Rome 2 will be playing some live shows. Can you give our listeners an insight to how many shows you have scheduled? And on the flip side, where can your fans and our listeners find you?
Okay. Yeah, we're doing 4 shows in California. The first show we are, let me get this right, we are playing the Whiskey A Go-Go on Sunset Boulevard, and then we go to San Diego, we play House of Blues, and then we jump back to a place called St. Roch, which is in Hermosa Beach, and then we have a long drive to out into Sacramento, and we're playing a club called the Boardwalk. We're actually on Bands in Town, When in Rome 2, and we're also on Facebook. I think it's When in Rome Band, facebook.com/When in Rome Band. And we have a website, When in Rome 2. So anybody interested in going to the shows could basically check them out from there. Or if you Google it, if you put that in Google, it'll probably come up. We've not been doing many shows this year. We had a couple of tours that were going to happen that didn't quite happen. We have another tour supposedly scheduled for next year with Big Country. That's early on in the development stage, so that's kind of a watch this space for that. But the live work is it's been hit and miss over the last year or so, but I think next year is going to be busy.
Oh, very good.
Well, can you tell our listeners a little bit about your live shows and what can they expect? Who's the rest of the band with you?
Well, the band consists of me on keyboards. The vocalist is a guy called Tony Fennell.
Yeah.
He was Ultravox. He replaced Midge-Ure in Ultravox, and he came on board and joined When in Rome in 2020. We did a tour during COVID. when COVID was about to hit, which was very interesting. Yeah. So, yeah, Tony plays guitar. He's a great guitar player. He's also been in a band called Enough's Enough, yep, and a few other bands. But, yeah, he actually recorded an album with Ultravox and replaced Midge and toured all over with Ultravox. And then he moved to the States, and luckily I ran into him. And we also have a live drummer. Because we're an electronic band, we have, a lot of little blips and stuff and a bass on track. So we go out as a 3-piece, but it's quite a big sound. We have it programmed, so it's very live, but it's got that kick that you get, with all the stuff that goes on with the electronics. And yeah, we did a big tour in 2020 with Bow Wow Wow and the Motels, and over the years we've toured with most of the 80s bands like Flock of Seagulls, Devo, Psychedelic Furs, and many others. So it's been interesting.
Absolutely. Well, before we get started here, some of our listeners might be confused with When in Rome 2 and When in Rome UK. Can you talk about the two bands and clear any confusion our listeners might have?
Yeah, I'd have to rewind to the beginning. In the early 80s, I formed a band with the singer at the time, Clive Farrington, and we named the band When in Rome, and then we recorded our one and only album, as it turned out, and obviously we wrote The Promise, which became a big hit. Andrew Mann, who was the third member of the band, he wrote some lyrics on that as well, and we recorded that album, and then we kind of had the musical differences. We did a couple of tours over in the States, and we were about to record the second album, and the record company were just about to pull the trigger on all the financing. And then we had a disagreement about the musical direction, which happens a lot with bands. Yeah. It usually happens after the third or fourth album, though, not the first. And I kind of wrote the music, so that was my side of it. And I kind of wanted to go in one direction, which was kind of a continuation of the first album. And the other guys, they didn't want to go in that direction. They wanted to do something a bit more contemporary. So we parted the ways. So in 1990, the band kind of broke up. Then I moved over to the States. And in 2006, I was approached by an agent in the West Coast, on the West Coast, to reform the band and do a major tour with Devo. And I said, well, as far as I'm aware, the other guys aren't singing anymore. They didn't continue, they kind of drifted off into day jobs. They may have done other projects, I don't know, but they weren't performing. And when in Rome, the name wasn't being used. So I thought, well, I'd love to do the shows, but it's just not going to be practical to get the original singers back because they're in England and they've not been singing, they're doing other jobs. So I found a singer. I was living in Dallas, Texas at the time, and I found a singer that I'd been working with who was perfect for the tour. So I thought it was going to be a one tour thing with the When in Rome. I wasn't sure where it was going to go, but I enjoyed it so much that I continued with the band, and then we started working on another album. And then the original two guys decided that they wanted to be When in Rome again. By which time I'd got an album going that was about to go out. So, my advice, with any band is to protect your mark, your trademark. Yeah. So I trademarked When in Rome. And so obviously those guys being When in Rome, me being When in Rome was just going to confuse the hell out of people. So, we went through a few legal wrangles and decided afterwards to sign a piece of paper. And so now I'm When in Rome 2, and those guys perform as Clive Farrington and Andrew Mann, formerly of When in Rome. So there are two distinct bands. But we started touring again in 2006, and as I said earlier, we've been doing it ever since. We've been all over South America. We've played in quite a few different. Well, we played all over America. To be honest, we did tour in Hawaii as well. So it's been very interesting. And, what turned out to be what I thought would be a one-tour thing has turned out to be still going.
Well, that's awesome. Well, while we're on the, backtracking subject, were all the tracks used for, When in Rome, the original band, or was there anything left over that got shelved because the band broke up?
Oh yeah. In fact, it was a very weird situation. When we got our record deal, we didn't tour. There was 2 vocalists and me. I was the keyboard player, and so we would demo, and I would program the drums, etc. So we would create these demos, and The Promise kind of stood out as being an obvious single, but we had a couple of others that we thought were just as good. And so we got a record deal, and then it was with Elektra. Elektra Records was opened up in London. Elektra decided to start a UK-based label, but they were under the Warner Brothers, so we were signed to Elektra, and then we were supposed to go in and record an album, but before we got to do the album, Elektra got sucked back into Warner Brothers and got taken back to the States. So we then found ourselves with an A&R man who was based in America, and we'd had an English A&R man that was helping us out. So we felt totally, dislocated from Warner Brothers. So we actually negotiated out the deal and got another record deal a year later with Virgin. In the meantime, we kept writing. So we got to the stage with the first album where we had a bunch of songs. So we did the first album, and so there was a bunch of songs that didn't make the first album. And then we wrote some more in anticipation of the second album. So there's probably 10 or 15 minimum songs lying around that just never finished.
Yeah.
They were demos, they never ended up getting completed. So yeah, the answer is yes. There are some left over.
Oh, very good. When in Rome 2 released its second self-titled album of sorts in 2015. Can you talk about the songwriting and creativity behind that release?
Yeah, it was almost like, for me, it was like unfinished business, because I thought we were going to do a second When in Rome album, and we never got to do it because the band broke up, and the label at the time, it was a really weird time when we broke up. We broke up in 1989, 90, and the whole music scene shifted. It went from, Depeche Mode and Oz and all these other 80s bands, and then it went to Soul, and it went to a different vibe altogether. And the record companies were kind of shifting away from 80s bands. And so the album never got done. And then I thought, well, at some point maybe I can do another album. And that's what happened in 2015. Got the chance to do it. And basically I wanted to do something that was a little bit more organic. And so I found a guy called Warren Hart to produce the album. And he's, if you can Google him, he's done a lot of albums with a lot of big bands.
Yeah.
I forget the band. He had a big hit, the Frey album, and he also worked with Aerosmith and quite a few other bands. His CV's as long as your arm, And he worked with us. The singer for that album was my second singer, Johnny Chiaravolo, great singer. And when we were working with Warren, he said, I listened to your first album, he said, but to be honest with you, I think you've got better songs on the second album.
Mm.
And of course, we released it, with a company called Spectra Records, and then it went on electronic distribution, and it had a lot of interest. But again, nobody's buying records anymore. Unless you can get a niche, you can get it placed in a movie, or somebody picks up on TikTok. It's really difficult to get, an album picked up on. People seem to tend to relate to songs now. They don't listen to albums as much, which is probably a topic we will discuss. I don't know.
I agree.
But it was a lot of fun. We did California. We recorded all the tracks in my studio and John's studio, and then we went into I forget the name of the studio. It was near Santa Monica, but we went out to California and we mixed out there with Warren, and it was a really good experience. And we used a great drummer, session drummer, and again, name escapes me, but it'll come back to me. But he was a great guy, and he played on all the tracks. And to this day, I still love that album. It's we play a couple of songs off it when we play live,
cool.
And it really resonates with the audience. We get great responses. So, yeah, it was a great experience.
Well, my favorite track is the opening track, Last Train. You also had a video of that posted on your website, so people check that out. It's really cool. Can you talk a little bit about the making of that song or the video?
The funny thing about that video is it was shot in Dallas, and the Last Train is about your last chance, basically. Yeah. The song, it's about you've been down this road so many times, you really can't go down it anymore. It's your last chance. And the guy in the video was a reformed alcoholic who'd attempted to kill himself by throwing himself in front of a train. So it might not be apparent in the video. I hope it is, but basically that video has him in it, contemplating that. Not exactly a cheery subject, I must admit. But it happened to be the song that we wanted to do the video with, so that's how that came about. And so but it was fun, and I've always loved monochrome, so that was one of my insistence. It's got to be black and white.
Well, Haunted is my favorite track off the second album here. Can you talk a little bit more about the creativity, the recording of that song? I find it to be a real banger of a song.
Yeah, it's weird. The way that I write and the way that I always write is I'll sit down, usually at the piano, and I'll come up with an idea, and then I'll flesh it out, and I'll put a drum machine to it or something, and then I will send it to, in this case, to John, and John was a guitar player, singer, and he'll just send me something back, and what I say to people when I write, especially with John, is send me, just sing whatever comes into your head, because I'll actually put it in a format. It'll have a beginning, like for Haunted, it'll have had the opening piano, and then it would have had a verse and a bridge and a chorus. So he would have got it like that, and then he would have sent me his first. And I always say, you can sing what you like, you don't have to sing lyrics. You can even hum it, but send it back. And then what I'll do is I'll listen to what you've done, and I'll pick out the pieces that I think should work, and send it you back. And then it becomes collaboration. And he gets the bits back and he goes, yeah, I see what you mean. And he will work on the lyrics. I suggest lyrics, but I don't really do lyrics. I'm more of the music person. So with Haunted, it would have come back from John to me, and I would have sent it back, and then that's when we would have honed in on the lyrics. And every song was like that, really. There are exceptions, but that's basically how I write.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I just discovered it right before this interview, and I'm going to go back and listen to more of it. But it made me sit there and think, a lot of the 80s bands are, there are some trying to make comebacks, and is there any plans to do another album?
Well, yeah, there is. It's kind of a slow burn. We've actually got 4 songs finished, and we're in the process with others. But since COVID, it's been a very weird process. It really has. And we finished the one song, and then it didn't quite fit with another. So we perform the new songs for the new album live, and we know that they work because everybody seems to enjoy them. We do Haunted live as well, by the way. Good choice. Nice. And so we kind of know, but I think we're still searching for that common thread.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a band called Blue Nile, Scottish band?
I believe I have.
Yeah. The reason I mention them is they release about one album every 15 years. But when they do, it's worth it. And I'm not saying that because, it's kind of self-bragging and all that. It's just that as when in Rome, are not prolific in the albums department. So when we do release one, we want it to be as good as it can be.
Yeah.
And we're 2 songs short right now. There's 3 or 4 demos that I think are really good. And I've got a bunch of demos from the When in Rome 2 album, which I'm still mulling over. I'm also writing a solo album right now.
Oh, cool.
So it just takes time, really. And that, but it will happen at some point.
Well, the society that we're in now, that singles are being released, more prevalent than albums, and if you do get an album now, it's more generalized and EP formatted. Versus an LP. Talk to us about this world we're living in music now. Do you prefer the releases of singles opposed to full-length albums or extended plays? I guess where's your mind in all of this right now?
Wow. It's just changed so much. I mean, I'll walk you back in the day when we got our first record deal. Even before that, when I was trying to get record deals with other bands, your whole focus was on 3 to 4 songs. Put your best 4 songs on a cassette. Get the record company or a management company or whoever you approach, get them to get interested in you, and then hopefully from there they get you a record deal and you record an album. And that was the holy grail, because you wanted the album, and then usually if you got an album, you'd have a 3-album deal. So you knew that if you did 1 album, you could probably get to develop to do 2 or 3. And back in those days, record companies allowed you to breathe. And we signed like a 4 or 5 album deal, and it's optional, but you usually get 2 or 3. That was the standard norm back then. Obviously, in our cases, we had the musical differences, but most bands put 2 or 3 albums out back in those days because you're learning as you go. When you're writing songs and you're an up-and-coming writer and you're just getting into the business, you're not the finished article yourself. So, you're writing stuff in order to learn, but you're also being very creative. And an album allows you to do that. Obviously, with singles, anybody can write a single because it doesn't take a lot of work to do it. But to do a body of work, I think takes a lot more skill and a lot more talent. But we live in a society now which wants everything yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
And nobody has the patience for an album. And I'm going to ask you this question. When was the last time you sat down and listened to a full album?
Yesterday.
Yeah, me too.
Prior to yesterday.
Well, the thing is that, Jeff and I, we've been doing this podcast for, 5 years now together. Yeah. And, right. Whoever we have on, we really focus in on listening to the body of work as much as we possibly can. So, we truly listen to a lot of music. And here's the flip side. And as you as the artist can maybe verify this, with less artists making full-length albums, we kind of lose the deep cut of an artist's music. And then on the flip side, a lot of people will say, well, that deep cut is just filler for an album. It's not their strongest material. But for me, the beauty of a LP is of those deep cuts. For you, the artist, do you miss that creativity of making those deep cuts, or maybe some people refer to it as filler? But where's your thoughts on all that?
Well, I think if you ask most artists, they don't set out to write a song as a filler. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you're writing a song, a lot of the time you think it's really good, because if I go through my process, I stop pretty quickly if I'm not happy with it. It just goes in the bin, So if you get to the point where you think, this is going to work, you're into it yourself, and then you write that song thinking, that's something I'm proud of. And if you're writing for an album, you go through that process time and time again. But if you're writing for an album, you can be more expressive because you don't have to focus on the hook line and on making it, an instant hit and making it a pop formula. You can probably evolve it more, and you can take it a little bit further than you would if you were constantly under pressure to write a hit. So I think an album gave you the opportunity to express yourself more and to be able to relax a little bit as far as pressure, because I remember it used to be evaluated by record companies. We need at least 3 hits off this album,
right.
Yeah. You're under that pressure to write commercial stuff, which might not be what you feel like you want to write at the time. And I don't know nowadays that people have got the mindset of album writing in that there's so much pressure to just make everything instant. And I just don't, I know I asked you that question, but I don't think if I asked most people that question, I'd get an answer of yesterday, last week, or last month. It'd probably be years ago.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I have friends like that. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Even I have playlists, you know, when I'm in the car, I've got a playlist and it'll jump from artist to artist. And I will listen to an album straight through, but not very often. And I think it's become the norm for everybody. Because we don't put it on the turntable anymore, do we? And sit down.
You're right. Exactly.
Yeah. Let's see here. I wanted to dive into, after the original When in Rome broke up, you mentioned moving to Dallas. I read about that you joined the James Neal Music House, started working on music for television and film. Can you talk a little bit about that transition from, writing for a band versus writing for television and film?
Yeah, in fact, what happened was just after 1990, when the band broke up, I started working with a really good singer from Liverpool, and we kind of wrote a lot of soulful songs, and we had a lot of record company interest, but he wasn't particularly photogenic, and we got turned down by 3 record companies after they'd seen the pictures. They heard the demos and they wanted to see more. And then I sent them the promo pictures and they said, we love the stuff, but we can't market this. We don't think the singer's marketable. And I'm like, it's not about the music anymore, And I was just so disillusioned with writing songs, and it was just how it could be marketed, that I just thought, I want to change. So I moved to the States in 92. And I wanted to work in commercial music. So it was just music that people would pay me for, but also they would, appreciate it. And I was fortunate enough to work with James Neal Music House. And what he did was he wrote commercial music. So, it was campaigns for, all kinds of things, TGI Fridays, AT&T. And it's a completely different animal than, working in the recording business. It's all about what they want, not what you want. And there's a lot of pressure on you, and it's a different world. I was in a situation in one session where you would write the music, and then you'd get a voiceover. So say it was an AT&T spot, so you'd have your music would be there, and you'd be in the studio with the music, and you'd have a voiceover, and that would be recorded. And then you'd have all of the agency that hired you for the job come into the studio to listen to the final mix. And there's so many people in there, you don't know who they are. And they're trying to tell you what to do, turn this up, turn that up. And I can't tell you how many times there was guys there telling us, well, you need to bring this up and bring that down. And they were like the account executives. Yeah. They weren't even the decision makers. They weren't the head of creative. But what was happening in those days was that we would always put on these great spreads of, for dinners and coffee and cakes, and they would all come down just to get out of the office. And it was all egos, and we were like, we just wanted to know which one of you is the decision maker here, because, we've got this track and we need to finish it. So it was an entirely different world altogether. But I did enjoy it. I got to write industrial stuff for corporations, and I did 1 hour's music for a software company, and it had to be Australian, ethnic music, but with a modern backbeat in surround sound. So it was for a San Francisco conference. So I had to go and study all the different instruments from Australia and work out how to get them into the sampler and get them timed up and everything. And I enjoyed, I loved every minute of it because it was a challenge. But that was in a time where we don't have the technology we have now. So I was doing a lot of it, almost manually. So it took a lot longer. But yeah, during that time, I didn't write songs for about 3 years, and I just immersed myself in the commercial side of it. And then, of course, I got to the point where I'm like, I'm really a songwriter.
Yeah.
This is great to make money, and I still do it now. Still do the odd thing, and I have people that call me up and ask me to write music. But ultimately, I do. I write songs, so I drifted back into that, and now I do kind of do both. But technologically, it has just gone from basically the Stone Age to the Rocket Age in 10, 15 years. In what you can do musically. Anybody can do music nowadays.
Well, some of our listeners might not realize your work as a producer. Can you talk a little bit more about your journey into the other side of the glass when it comes to the recording process?
Well, the traditional way that people used to record music, going back in the 60s, 70s, would you have a 4-track tape or an 8-track tape, and you'd record a band, we're thinking Motown or the Beatles here, and your producer would go in and record the drums and the bass and the guitars, and he'd figure out the arrangement and record the vocals, and they'd bounce. Because they didn't have enough tracks, so they would bounce from one track to the other. And I listened to the Sgt. Pepper album, the original masters, and a lot of those masters were bounced. The tracks were bounced because they didn't have enough tracks. So that side of it back then was, really, really basic compared to what you have now. And now you move forward and you have what's called DAWs, which are digital audio workstations, and they're very cheap, if not free. And you can record minimum of 96 tracks. You can go more than that, and you can double, treble track and all that kind of thing. It's all virtual. It's all non-destructive, which means that if you record something, it's always there. You can change it, but it's always going to go back. With tape, it was very brittle, and if you wanted to do anything, any experimental stuff, you really had a difficult time because you were working with tape. So from a production point of view, from then to now, you have so many more choices, and you can literally mix a track any way you want, and it's limitless. And going back then, you really didn't have a lot of option. You had 4, 8 tracks. Nowadays, you can have, like I say, you can have 48, 96 tracks. You can apply all these different effects to it. You can pitch shift it. You can add an AI voice to it if you want. You can make and produce a completely different track from the same track. So it's opened up a complete, new world to music that was back in the 60s and 70s. So, it's totally changed.
Oh, very good. Well, I'm probably jumping around here a little bit, but I'm going to take it back to The Promise. Can you talk a little bit about how, as a songwriter, as somebody that writes the songs, when other groups then come along and cover it? We've had recent Kelly Clarkson, Sturgill Simpson, even found Newfound Glory did a punk version of the song. Can you talk a little bit about hearing somebody else do your song, and how's that work for you?
Yeah, it's really interesting because when the song was a hit, it didn't get covered for quite a few years. Yeah. And basically it kind of just was there for a while, and then obviously Napoleon Dynamite, it was in the end credits of Napoleon Dynamite. Yeah. And since then it has been used in a lot of TV series, and it's been used in other movies. And basically, it's taken on a different dimension, and it has been covered a lot. And when it first started getting covered, it was just nice that people wanted to cover it. Like, oh, great, yeah. And I remember Sturgill Simpson did a version. Have you heard that version?
Yeah.
That was so different.
Yeah, it's completely different.
It's completely different, but I loved it. Yeah. I'm like, it's kind of it's a compliment that they want to do it. I take it as a compliment. And we have a publishing company, and what they do is when an artist wants to cover it, they actually contact you and say, "Do you approve?" Nice. And you can say no. but it's usually if they're taking it in vain, and using profanities or changing some lyrics out or something. So I've never been in a position where I've said I don't like that. But there's rap versions out there. There's Miami Sound Machine versions. I'm sure you've heard different versions. Mm-hmm. I find it a compliment, and I'm happy that people, want to do that. I see a lot of versions on YouTube where people sing it, and it's quite funny.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, I have one last question for you, and because we're out of our allotted time. So I asked this question to Don McLean from, American Pie. And so this is a very, very similar question to you about The Promise. What is it like for you as an artist to have a song that is going to be played until the end of man, is no longer around? How do you compute that in your head? Is this song is going to outlast me, and it's going to outlast mankind until there's nothing left, to have a song that's so powerful that'll be played until the end of men? How does that feel?
I never thought of it like that, to be honest. It's almost, to me, it's almost like I never was involved with it. It's got to the point where it's been around for so long, I'm almost disassociated from it in a strange way.
Yeah.
The only time that I really feel connected to it is when I play it live, because I see the reaction, from the audience, and then you then reconnect, but it's almost an out of body experience in a way.
Yeah.
And I look at songwriters like Sting and the guys from U2 and Coldplay and all those guys, and they've written so many songs, and I don't know how they feel about it, because you just kind of just do your thing, don't you? It's just nice that you've written something that's going to stand the test of time. I guess if you asked any musician what would be, the thing that you would like remembered about you, and I guess the answer would be a song that affected people. Yeah. So I think it does. I mean, I've had people come up to me and say that they got married to it, they buried people to it. I had a poet from New York contact me last year, and his son got married to it. And then he sent me the lyrics that they changed, but they changed them for the ceremony. So, people, it affects different people in different ways. So I just, it's just an honor, really, that people enjoy it.
Well, it's a fantastic song.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's one of those songs that are going to be held along the lines of things like American Pie and Sweet Home Alabama, and you name it. It's just going to be one of those songs that's going to be there in the lineage of man. But we're out of our allotted time for the evening. Is there anything that we left off tonight that you would like to plug or promote?
All I would say is we talked a little bit about this before the interview, about the effect that AI is going to have on the industry in the future. Yeah. And I've really only looked into it very in a very shallow way, but now that I can see that it's going to have a profound effect on music in the future. So much so that I'm actually using it myself right now on this new album that I'm working on in a positive way, in that AI can help you, and it doesn't have to be something that is frowned upon, because you still have to have the talent to write music. Yeah. And that's when the AI comes in. It helps you to push that process along a bit quicker, which is what it's doing for me, So I just think, moving forward, AI is going to have a big influence on all artists, whether they like it or not. And if we had more time, I would go into that a bit more. But yeah.
Well, we can always have a part 2, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So this is how things are going to work out. Jeff, the editing wizard over here, will get everything cleaned up. And as soon as it's ready to go, I will text you the link. Then please share it wherever you possibly can on your socials. We'd appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. No, I really enjoyed it. And if you have any questions that I missed out, just let me know. I ramble a bit, as you know.
You
did great.
You did fantastic. So I hope this interview was better than the first one you ever did.
Oh yeah. I remember I told you about the oh dear me. There were so many pregnant pauses in there. It was embarrassing. No, this was great. You guys were great.
Thank you so much. Well, Mike.
Yeah,
it was a true pleasure having you on tonight.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we enjoyed it. And if you feel like you would like to do a part 2 somewhere down the line with us, let us know, and we'll put you on the books. Sure. Sound good?
Are you guys LA? Are you in California?
I wish. No, we are in the Midwest. We are very happy to be right smack dab in the middle of the United States, right on the Mississippi River.
I wouldn't wish California on anybody, to be honest. But yeah, if you're ever in the area where we're doing a show, just text me and I'll put you on the guest list and come down and see us.
Well, hey, we'll make a deal with you. You come over to the
Midwest,
come to the Chicagoland area or anywhere like that. We'll be there. Sound good?
Oh yeah. In fact, I never talked about this, but we've got a side project called New Wave, and we do versions of our version of 80 songs with a video backdrop. And we were supposed to play Chicago with New Wave last month. That didn't happen. I think not because of us, because the theatre moved the show backwards. But yeah, if we're ever in the Chicago area, come down and see us. New Wave or When in Rome, either.
Fantastic, awesome. We'll do, man. All right. Well, hey, yeah. I'll be in touch.
Okay, sounds great.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks a lot.
Have a good one. Bye bye.
Thank you.
strip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out